Hi to everyone. This is Emanuele from Italy, Evil Dead Italia. This evening we are going to talk about a very particular, peculiar case, the case of the video Nasties in UK. We are in the 1983 circa, and certain horror movies were substantially recognized as evil for the people, and I mean, they were banned and they were considered illegal sometimes. So, without any further ado, before presenting my guests that are very valuable guests this evening, I would like to read you the definition of moral panic that fit perfectly with this kind of situation. So, a moral panic is a widespread feeling of fear, often an irrational one, that some evil person or thing threatens the value, interest, of well-being of a community or a society. It is the process of arousing social concern over an issue, usually perpetuated by moral entrepreneurs and mass media coverage, and exacerbated by politicians and lawmakers. Moral panic can give rise to new laws aimed at controlling the community. And this fit perfectly with the Nasty Videos story. So, without any further ado, I'm going to present one by one my guests. First of all, we have Andrew David Barker. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
Hi there. How are you? I'm very
I,
well, thank you.
I'm fine too. So, Andrew, if you don't know him, is the author of this beautiful book. Okay, it's called Dead Leaves. Can you describe it a little bit, the plot of this book, and why we are talking about this evening?
Well, Dead Leaves is set smack bang in the middle of tonight's subject in the video nasty era, and it's about three kids, sort of late teenagers, just left school, have no sort of hope, no future. Um, Three working class kids in my hometown of Derby, and they're all film fans, horror film fans, during this period of moral panic and outrage. Um, and they are obsessed with horror movies, and the main narrative drive, the main thrust of it is that they want to get hold of the holy grail of video nasties, Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead, and they go on a series of misadventures to track down a copy, that beautiful copy there, of this notorious film that was corrupting young minds of Britain in 1983.
Okay, thank you. And now I'm going to present the second guest. It doesn't need any presentation to be clear. Is Graham Humphreys. Graham Humphreys is a great illustrator. He illustrated a lot of horror movies poster. But can you present yourself a little bit for the ones who didn't know you?
Of course, yes. My job is as a commercial artist, or an illustrator to be more specific. And I began my work in 1980, and probably the first significant job I had was the poster for The Evil Dead, the UK quad campaign, which marked a simultaneous release of the VHS. That was a bit of a rare thing in those days. Usually, a VHS release would be held back, certainly about a year or so, if not longer, occasionally. So it's just a gamble on the part of Palace Pictures that they would release the video and the film theatrically at the same time. It was a gamble that paid off, of course. It was a low-budget film with no perceived mass commercial audience at all, but it was just one of those things that just caught the zeitgeist, I suppose, and just became incredibly popular. And although I would never have considered a video nasty myself, it certainly is one of those films which was significantly popular and had sufficient press that it just kind of just found itself fairly near the top of the list. To me, it's like a big cartoon, but for the sort of right-wing press, it's just another representation of moral decline and everything that was wrong with Britain.
Cool, cool. And now I'm going to present the last one guest, last but not least. That is Michael Witch. Michael Witch, hi Mike.
Hello.
Mike
Sorry
is.
I'm late.
I'm
Okay,
fine.
hi Graham,
Are
hi
you
Andrew.
fine? Are you fine? It's a lot of time we don't meet. We didn't meet, and because me and Mike we met a couple of times. Once, no, even three. Once UK, one in US during a convention. So we are a long time. We are long time friends, long time Evil Dead friends. And Michael is a great fan, and moreover, a great collector. And during the video Nasties period, if I'm not wrong, you were something like 14, 15, right?
Yeah.
So can you
Well, I was
present?
born in 1970, so
Yeah. So could you present yourself a little bit to the persons that are watching this live?
yeah, it's just obviously I'm an Evil Dead super fan. You can probably see behind me. It's lots of
I can
Evil
see
Dead
the
stuff.
tape, the
Yeah, it's there,
reel
isn't
to
it?
reel. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, born in 1970, so I kind of lived through all the video nasty stuff going on. I became obsessed with the Evil Dead from like 13 years old. And yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say really because being that young, I guess a lot of what was going on behind the scenes with the video nasties was sort of like I didn't know. It was just these tapes were becoming unavailable. I can remember going down to my local video shop, which I'd already rented Evil Dead a bunch of times, and the guy just saying you can't have it anymore. Of course, we didn't have internet and things like this at the time, so you started hearing stuff in the newspaper and this, that, and the other, and yeah, kind of went from there really. I mean, it took me about another 5 years, I think, to track down a copy of Evil Dead, and my very first one I picked up was the one that Emmanuel has got. So
This one, do you mean this one?
yeah, that's it.
Did you say it took another 5 years to track
Yeah,
down?
well, it got banned in 1984, didn't it? So I managed to get it around. I'd say it was about 89. I think 80, 88,
Wow.
89.
Wow.
And yeah, it just took a long time. I mean, like I say, there was no internet, so it was. I can remember literally, looking in like newspapers or to see what video shops were still around, and actually going there and asking them if they still had a copy, and would they be willing to sell it. And I had a couple of false alarms before I finally got it, because I can remember going to the one and the guy said to me, yeah, he said, I still got it in the back of the shop. He said, I'll have to dig it out. And I said, well, would you sell it? And he's like, yeah, sure. So I went back there and he's like, oh, I can't find it. I thought it was there, so that was a disappointment. And then another one I went to then, he pretty much the same thing. Said he convinced he had it in the back of the shop, and then when I got there, he didn't. And then the first sort of copy I got, I mean, this is after the ban. Like I said, me and my sister rented the film a bunch of times before it got banned. I managed to get a copy. I think somebody recorded it off cable TV or something, and they said, "Oh, I've managed to get you a copy of Evil Dead." And yeah, I was excited. But my first real copy was like I say, the one I ended up giving to Emmanuel, because I got newer, well, pristine copies, and
You
yeah.
sound like you lived the plot of the book that I wrote.
Pretty much, and I've read the book, and I
Oh, thank you.
yeah, I have it there.
Oh,
It's got the
cheers, man.
special edition,
You
and
got
actually,
the VHS one, yeah.
yes. And
Yeah, at the time I was too slow to get one, so I was happy to get the book, but I read this in the last few days because at that time I was not able to read in a good way.
See that?
Oh, is it numbered?
Yeah, it's number 1.
You are joking. You got number 1.
Fantastic.
Oh, hold on, Emmanuel, I've got something for you.
Absolutely.
There. I don't know if you can see it yet. Can you see it properly?
I've got one for you.
Oh, right.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you
Oh, the
so much.
box thing. So
I'll
yeah,
send
it's
you one.
so I might have been your first customer. I don't know, but it was number one unless it was random.
That's amazing. Where did you get it?
I can't remember. I really can't remember.
Yeah.
Must have seen it. I don't know. Was it maybe on Facebook or something? It popped up. I'm really not sure. I mean,
Well,
great.
surely Grandma knows, but Michael won even some kind of prize for the most the biggest fan in the UK. So
yes.
he have a painting by Graham
Mhm.
Humphreys in which
Mhm.
he is at the diet coming out from the cellar. It's
Yeah.
something fantastic.
Oh mate, did you
That's
see that,
fantastic.
that shameless move that I've just made there?
Yes.
Shameless.
Yes, and I have that painting on my wall over there. So
Amazing.
next to the quad, it's on my wall. So yeah,
Oh,
forever grateful for that, Graham. That's that might be my biggest favorite piece, I think.
Oh, I'm glad to hear it.
If I ever have a house fire, I'll save that before the missus. I hope she's not watching, but
Graham, how old was you when you did that cover?
I would have been 22, I guess.
Wow.
I mean, it's it's a long time ago, so I can't remember the date on the poster. Is that 1983 or 1982?
well, it came out in '83 on the poster.
Right, so it's,
Has it got-
yes, I was 22 at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm I've really only been working for 2 years freelance, so it was a long. It was a long build up, and that wasn't the first poster I ever did, but it was the first one which I completely controlled, if you like, in terms of how it looked and what I wanted to do. So for me, it's a very special piece of work. I mean, I regard it as being a very early, very crude piece of work. But I understand how it's all about perception and what people saw at the time. It's very different to what I saw at the time. For me, it was just sort of almost like a joke poster, which I didn't expect to be up and around for any longer than about a month, really, and then just forgotten about. Already, within 2 weeks of doing it, I was on to the next job, and just didn't really think anything of it. It was up on the underground for the duration of the theatrical release, and a few kind of seemed to just be hanging around for up to about a year. Even I think I would spot them every now and again. But then that was it, but the video had its own life, and as I said, the video cover was done about the same time as the painting for the quad, but the video had to be painted very, very quickly because it's just one of those stupid things at the time that nobody thought about how does a quad work on a VHS format, cover, and of course it doesn't. I just said, why don't you just, why can't? What's wrong with having it on its side? It's and they said no, that's never going to work. Well, I suppose that's reasonable, but I had to very, very quickly repaint it, and it's not a very good painting as a result of that. But of course, nowadays I would have, that it would have been possible to have photoshopped the existing artwork and just reformatted it, but that wasn't an option at the time. I mean, I didn't have access to any of that kind of technology until years later.
So at 22, then, how did it feel to have that imagery, that cover, be seen in the press, in the tabloids?
Well, yeah, it was very exciting. I mean, I did the artwork for most of the ads that appeared anyway. Them is all slapped together with photocopies and painted lettering and bits of letter set, and it's just very, very crude, simple stuff. But it was right for the film, I think, though. And I guess one of the reasons why it probably found its way onto the video nasty list is not so much the film, but the look of the artwork and all the advertising, which I guess gave it the feel of a sort of homemade snuff movie. And I think that's probably the reason why it attracted that attention.
I mean, I'm sure you've been told this before, Graham, but I genuinely believe that artwork had a huge impact on the success of the film over here.
Well, I've been told this by no less than Sam Raimi himself, and
yeah.
really,
I mean, it's so striking. But not only that, when when you actually got to watch the film, it matched up to the striking cover, which was rare. We all rented horror films on the great covers and then actually watched them and thought, rubbish. And that just like I said, it was perfect. And any of my friends who grew up in our era all love that poster. Like there's nobody says otherwise. I mean,
that's good.
so the guys are probably where they are today because of you. Because in some ways, yeah.
Well, the thing is,
But
when I designed the poster, although I had seen the film, I think I was less interested in representing the film more than trying to recreate a sort of a lost era of horror film posters from the 1940s and 1950s, and really that's where I was coming from. And I saw the film. For me, I kind of did feel that there was an affinity with some of the early Hammer horrors as well, though, and certainly the color palettes and some of the camera moves. And I don't, I would never know if that's what Sam Raimi had in his mind at all, but that's what I had in my mind when I saw it. So for me, I was, looking some sort of, Hammer times 100 through the eyes of, poster artists in the 1940s. It's very odd. I find it very odd to this day that people regard it as a quintessentially 1980s piece of work, because that was probably, I was actually, if anything, trying not to be anywhere near the 1980s.
Well, it certainly wasn't like anything else at the time. It set a precedent, I think.
I mean,
had you seen the film before you did the cover, or did you see it after?
Yeah. No, I was invited along to a special screening at Scala Cinema, and of course, Scala Cinema in King's Cross was where Palace Pictures had their offices at the time, and in fact, the distribution or theatrical distribution arm was very new, and this was actually only their second theatrical release. The first being a French thriller called Diva. And, this is obviously quite a departure from what I guess was intended to be a sort of art house distribution company. But obviously they'd seen the film, and, the guys, they were big horror fans anyway. I mean, they'd pretty much built the Scala Cinema and the Scala Cinema's audience on reruns of old horror films. And so Dead was a natural for them, really.
An old friend of mine, Dave Flint, used to tell me about the late nighters at the Scala. It sounded amazing. I wish I could have gone to that.
Yeah, they could be quite messy. I mean, the idea of a cinema being open all night showing horror films. I mean, it was a nice warm place for sort of homeless people to go to, and everybody would smoke at the time, and there'd be people with big bags of cans of beer. So mostly people were drunk, they were stoned, asleep. There were horror fans as well. But
that's fantastic.
Yeah. And of course there are two cats, the Scala cats, which would be roaming around, sort of running over your feet every now and again.
Right.
Very, very cool. I have to show to you some footage on which we could have some talk about. It's a new cast from the
Moral
80s.
Panic.
Yes, a Moral Panic. Yes, about the nasty movies. I have two, indeed. The first one is from a new caster. The second one is something like 3-4 seconds of Mary Whitehouse talking about nasty movies, and that one win everything. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, it's let's say it's something like a nightmare, but seeing now it's make you laugh in a certain way. Let's say. I'm going to start the stream then.
Okay.
You have been warned is the message to video retailers from the Director of Public Prosecutions. If you stock any of the 62 titles on a list circulated by Scotland Yard, you could end up in court.
We certainly saw in 1982 a series of videos which depicted mutilation, it depicted death, it depicted violence which we felt enough was enough and took action to stop the growing spread of this form of violence.
Respectable video traders have long been pushing for some indication of what they can and cannot safely offer the public.
It will now show us what our members can stock, what they cannot stock. This has been something we've been wanting now for 2.5 years. It's varied from area to area. We've had various members going to prison on offences. We've had people being under the threat of prosecution for various other offences. Hopefully now we'll know what is right and what is wrong. Yes, we welcome it.
The list doesn't solve everything. Shops like this make sure they only stock videos that have passed the film censors. But some of those now blacked have already been shown legally at public cinemas. If video retailers stock them, though, they can still be prosecuted. It's hoped such anomalies will disappear when the new video recordings bill becomes law later this year. Then, in the same way that there are age and other restrictions on who can see what in the cinema, the distribution of videos will be much more tightly controlled. Paul Asman for Thames News.
Okay, and then now I'm going to show you Mary Whitehouse, and I think we will have a lot of talk about. Later, I have some footage of Sam Raimi as a guest in a TV program in the UK for Evil Dead 2, with anyone screaming at him because his movie is disgusting, and he have to, let's say, defend himself against some claims that are very, very, very funny nowadays. So, oh, sorry, I'm going to remove this one. Okay. The second one is Mary Whitehouse, and it's very fun. Here it is.
Seen a video nasty? I wouldn't. I have far too
But
much.
how can you judge on a video nasty?
Oh,
You've never
easy.
seen one.
Look, if somebody tells me, as we get these reports in from Europe, from America, and from this country, that a particular video nasty contains that, and that, I actually don't need to see visually what I know is in that film.
There we are. So,
Oh, Mary.
so I suppose now we have a very high ground to talk about this, you know, a common ground to start talking about this controversial situation. I mean, there is a lot of literature on it. I mean, I started reading this, but I had no time to prepare on the whole book. This book is just a book that tell the story and show all the plot of any nasty movies, because the list contains 72 movies, if I'm not wrong.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think what it was when they brought in classification for films, whatever decade that was, probably around the head, could have been as early as the 40s or the 50s. Obviously, they didn't foresee home video, so there was like this no man's land where they could, once home video was introduced to the world, you didn't have to have certification on films to have them released, and this is where all this started, you know, and producers. It was like the Wild West. They just thought, well, we can do anything we want and make anything we want and put it out in the world, and people are going to watch it at home. And the Festival of Light certainly didn't like that. Mary Whitehouse and the Conservative government were not happy. It was a very strange time.
Yeah. Do you know what?
And it's kind of you were talking before, Graham, about before we came on, about EC Comics, or sort of the horror comics of the 50s in America, and how it had that very similar moral panic. And it was also the same as the way the tabloids made it about children watching these films. In the 50s, it was about children reading those comics, and it was very much the same kind of frenzy.
Yeah, nobody seems to question. Nobody questioned where where crime came from before that, as if suddenly this was the new source of evil for everybody, and children being corrupted. But it's just it's just insane. And one of the things that I found really annoying about the whole video nasty thing was just the basic hypocrisy which underpinned it, which was that as children we grew up on a diet of war films and westerns, and nobody seemed to question the savagery and violence, which was really the core of those films. I mean, obviously they served a propaganda purpose, which actually it's exactly what was going on by actually trying to ban films as well. That was serving a propaganda purpose, and so the irony of that, just always kind of made me angry. And some of the most popular films in the 80s were, films which depicted some of the horrors in Vietnam. And, if you look at First Blood, you're looking at incredibly violent films and with, very graphic scenes of gore as well, which, the stuff that was leveled at the Nasties, in fact, it was there in the mainstream cinema. And, there was so much money, I guess, behind those films that, of course, nobody's going to prevent them from being released. Whereas the majority of video nasties were pretty low budget anyway, though, and some of them, of course, were not American or English. They were kind of Italian, Spanish. So anything which might have would later be considered probably art house cinema, and in fact some of those films were. I mean, Driller Killer was really, the drilling as such was just almost incidental to the main film, which was sort of fairly mediocre film about obsession, and it kind of just wasn't really the promise of what you got on the cover was not in the film. Should we say maybe just a couple of scenes, and that was it really. But largely the content was kind of overlooked, I think, in favour of banning something which was number one, cheap, and also not controlled by the studios, and number two, just on the basis of what was perceived as offensive, as opposed to what actually was going on in the mainstream cinema, which was mostly far more offensive and corrupting, morally, if one's going to use that argument, than most of the video nasties list.
Yeah, and in a way, more realistic, because, like you say, war films and westerns and stuff was like kind of did happen. I mean, Evil Dead is the best film ever made, but it's ridiculous. I mean,
well,
how could you copy that?
It was about, I think it must have been about 7 years old, perhaps. We were visiting my grandmother. This is my sister-in-law. My sister's 2 years younger than me. We're just like kids. And, what would happen is the adults in a room would go and have our chat, and we'd just be left to watch the TV, which is absolutely fine by us, because we didn't want to listen to what they had to say anyway. Then, like watching TV, so it was a perfect Sunday afternoon out, really. But I do remember we watched. We were watching. It was clearly. I'm guessing King Lear with presumably Laurence Olivier, somebody, some sort of black and white film, which in this particular scene depicted the blinding of Gloucester. And this is like, Sunday afternoon, black and white TV, anybody's watching it. And, so you're basically watching an eye gouging scene. And then the guy presents, the eyes to in his hands, and you probably don't see the eyes, but it's so suggested that how is that not extreme horror? Available to all. So the idea that a depiction of violence and gore was something somehow new, it's just like absolute bollocks, of course. So as I say, there's always been this underlying hypocrisy, and certainly motivation was political and served an end for a right wing government and a right wing press who probably weren't even interested in the, as far as morality is concerned, that didn't exist in the press really. It's all about what would sell the papers, and thus bringing the advertising. And the Video Nasties was just a godsend, And just one other little point: Mary Whitehouse was pretty much offended by just about everything anyway, though, and I don't know what would have constituted, good TV for her. But I do remember way before the Video Nasty thing, she was attempting to try and get Tom and Jerry cartoons banned, and not for anything which nowadays people might have been offended, would be offended now by a depiction of, for instance, the black maid who would appear as a sort of ongoing cliche of how black people were depicted at the time. That wasn't the issue for her. It was the violence being depicted in cartoons. Anybody who thinks that cartoon violence is in any way real and actually going to corrupt the youth is just completely off their rocker, because it is the core of that form of cartooning, that animation, that stuff that actually can possibly happens, and without consequence, and that's the humor within. And kids aren't that stupid, they full well they're looking at cartoons. It's a mouse and a cat, for God's sake. So this whole moral panic had already been applied to something as innocuous as Tom and Jerry. So really, for Mary Whitehouse, the video era was a godsend for her, really. I mean, it's fantastic publicity for her, and a gift for the tabloids, and served its purpose in the House of Lords and the House of Commons under Thatcher's government, who were very happy to do anything which distracted from the issues which are really at the core of issue, the poverty that was being created, and the loss of jobs, and crushing of the unions. So it's a perfect distraction, and that's kind of all it was, really.
Yeah, I've seen a documentary that Andrew suggested me, and it was incredible how much this theme of the nasty movie was a sort of scapegoat. You mean what? You know what I mean? I mean, it was a scapegoat of every bad situation there was out there. I mean, it's a perfect scapegoat. And
like a
this,
distraction or something.
yeah, and this thing make me come out of my mind the fact that. I mean, I was born in I was born in 1981. So at the moment I play Dungeons and Dragons. I work in the video gaming industry. I love horror movies, and each of one. I read comic books because my father is a comic drawer. So practically in each part of the time before I was born, and after, even after I was born, everything I'm doing, I some sort of evil person, because if you play D&D, you are something like demonic, satanic, follower, occultist. If you watch horror movies, you're a psycho that would like to threaten children. If you read comic or you play video games, you are someone that is more oriented to violence. So it's pretty fun to see how much every time that some new media comes in, let's say, every time that the new media come out, it becomes the scapegoat for someone. And I mean, I remember in the 2000 there was a lot of stuff, a lot of controversial treatment for video games, because I mean, if you play something like Call of Duty, surely you will take a shotgun and shot to everyone in your neighborhood, no? So I suppose that this is the real problem. And when I see that documentary by that Andrew suggests me, at a certain point I was almost moved, because there is this collector, because the thing that making me sick is thinking that police ride video rental stores, but that those are sources and they are well, I mean, they can be found very easily. But the worst thing in the documentary was that at a certain point there is a collector that police go to his home, knock his door, and got all his personal collection, even the not let's say illegal videotape. And I was thinking, oh my god, this is something like, I don't know, a sort of fascism and Nazism. I mean, this guy was so sad after this. I mean, I will be the same. I will be the same. I mean, it is a nightmarish thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's happening in the States right now that books are being banned, and they're not just new books. They're not horror books. They're actually books that are considered classics. Written at some point in the 1940s, 50s, and on the most obscure kind of grounds. And it is, it's just all about how the right wing needs to control and actually tell people what you should and shouldn't read or watch or see, because they need to control that for propaganda purposes. And it's the thing is all about discouraging inquiring minds, because inquiring minds would then question authority, the authority of the government and individual governors or whatever. But an inquiring mind is the worst thing for a right wing government, because they don't want to be questioned, and people who perhaps question might actually decide they kind of want to change things, and of course that means it's no longer under control at all. So it's the role of the video nasty in that little period of time is quite interesting, only because it's happened before, and it will happen again, and it's happening right now, and it's nothing to do with the contents at all.
Right. Yeah.
I agree. I fully agree. Now, Andrew, in your book, you describe in a very, let's say, realistic way of thing of this kind. Let's say, happen in the UK, because there is that scene in which police enter in the rental shop and they arrest the video rental guy. And I mean, how do you wrote this scene? You just documented yourself, or you have someone that told you the stories by first hand, let's say?
I don't think that got through.
Andrew, can you hear me? Andrew?
Oh, don't look like.
Andrew, can you hear me? Do you hear me, guys?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay. So it's just Andrew. Okay. Andrew, we don't hear you, or you don't hear us.
Looking rather lost there.
Okay, he's having some internet problem.
Yes, maybe you should turn it off and then on again.
Okay.
Oh, I can see his microphone was
Yes,
had a line to it then, but it's
now,
okay now.
Are you okay now, Andrew? Can you hear me? Maybe you can try to refresh the page and re-enter. I'm going to remove you if you want. And in the meantime, while Andrew resolves his
commercial
internet
break
problem, I can show you the Sam Raimi videos, because they are pretty fun. So we can resolve the weight.
I don't know.
Okay, I'm going to show you this one. I'm going to go to a specific moment because the interview is all fine. Okay, I'm going to remove Andrew for a little bit so he can come back. Okay. So I'm going to show the video. The first, it is a video in two parts, but I'm going to show just a few moments. few peculiar moments. The first one is here. I'm going to minutes 9, if I'm not wrong, 9 and 24 or something like that.
Children. It is an inescapable fact. You are going to have that happen. What are you going to do about it?
Let's ask Gerald Howarth. I mean, what can be done to actually stop these things getting into the hands of youngsters who might be influenced by them?
Well, I do think there's a very difficult question that we all have to address ourselves to here, which is the freedom of our friend here to go and watch what he regards as being the equivalent of a relicate. So I quite understand, and to a certain extent I would agree with him. But what I don't think anybody who has really looked at this issue seriously has addressed themselves to is the free availability of the video cassette and its intrusion into the home. And we saw those girls screaming at that sudden horror bit, and they were all sort of falling over themselves. But they were all together. They were sort of taking comfort with one another, and that's what you do in the cinema. I remember seeing the Godfather and the horse in the bed scene, and I clutched my girlfriend and my best friend on the other side. But I mean, when you're sitting in your own drawing room, it's a different story, and we do have to address ourselves, I'm afraid, to this difficult question of having these things freely available to children. And I know it sounds a bit nanny state-ish. I quite accept that. But on the other hand, there is, I think, a general view, not just amongst the general public, but also some of the experts, that an endless diet of violence on the box, on the video, is going to have an impact on the children. I mean, at the Toxteth riots, for example, Lord Scarman said in his report that copycat violence was a factor. And I think that every realistic person does accept this. And I rather pose more questions than I present solutions.
Except from Sam Raimi's point of view, that this is really just fantasy in a lot of cases. I mean, what's the new film like?
The new picture is a horror movie also. Of course, it's a continuation of the first Evil Dead, story of demonic spirits that are raised from the ancient Sumerian Book of the Dead, and it's pretty much a ghost and monster picture.
Yeah, but that blood is pretty lifelike. When you see that blood spurting out of their mouths,
but you couldn't say you're getting
you don't see the old the sort of Hammer movie scene rocking in the background because it's a rather sort of cheap production. I mean, it's all very lifelike, and I think that is a problem. I mean, Sam Raimi himself says that he can't take a diet of
he does say
blood
he's getting a
much
bit
longer.
fed up with it, didn't you? Actually, say you're getting a bit fed up with making these with blood.
It's having an effect on him.
No,
From the age of 18, perhaps.
I wouldn't say that I'm through making horror pictures, just that I don't think that I'd put that particular sequence of the woman in the woods, because I didn't enjoy that particular
Would you let your
it.
kids watch anything at all like this? Have you got any children?
I would rather that they watched horror movies. I'd rather that they lived in a free society where they had the ability to watch those horror movies, rather than in a society...
The Flintstones, I think.
Well, rather than in a society where censorship or a group of people is determining for me what I can and cannot show my children.
Well, can I just make a point there? I mean, this old hoary thing of censorship is absolute nonsense. Censorship is going on all the time. It is going on in this studio. I mean, for instance, if you take that microphone away from me, nobody will be able to hear a thing I say. That is the kind of censorship that is going to happen, whatever Sam Raimi does. But the point is, we're not talking about censorship. We're simply talking about standards in the media and how the media affects behaviour and the level of social violence, and there is no doubt that it does affect the level of social violence.
There is a doubt. There's no
there's no doubt at all, I'm afraid.
What study do you base that on,
There
sir?
are at least 700 or 800 different pieces of independent evidence upon which to base that. But the most common sense thing is what I said before.
Name one.
Advertisers would not spend money, the vast sums that they do on television, if it didn't influence people's behaviour. A continual diet of anything, media or whatever it is going to affect people's behaviour. There is no doubt about it.
Yeah, but is
the
there
police
one example?
Recently had a press conference in Brixton, and they said, and I quote, that now knives are used 22 times a week in Brixton, and they said that they are trying to mount a campaign to de-glamorise, their own word, the use of knives, because now the types of knives that are used are not just sort of Boy Scout knives, but butcher's knives and all the rest of that sort of thing, which they
Okay. This is pretty fun. I mean, the way in which the poor Sam Raimi is there, waiting for these people to attack him about this movie is pretty fun. There is another piece
I
of
think
this that I'm going to
Sam
show you
really
later.
held his own during that.
I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
I think it's what he didn't say was more telling than what he did say. To be quite honest, I mean, he just let them, bicker amongst themselves because, I don't think, that last gentleman. The one thing he wasn't addressing is why there were problems in Brixton. It was nothing to do with what people have been watching or reading. It was to do with poverty and racism and all the other things which the government would rather not talk about because it's actually also the tabloids, of course, though, who were also very much part of the problem anyway in demonising anybody who didn't fit into the kind of boxes which were deemed suitable for advertisers, and it was all about not talking about real things and just looking for ghosts really to blame. I mean, it's just poor old Sam there was quite happy to talk about his film. I mean, as he said, it's a horror film with ghosts and monsters, and unfortunately, problems in Brixton at that time were nothing to do with ghosts and monsters. They were to do with policing and government policy and poverty and racism. And that's not ghosts and monsters, and And as regards, it's going back to what I said earlier on about, the guys, all the bloodletting is very realistic. Well, and he mentioned the Hammer films, bizarrely, which actually were quite shocking at the time, and there were attempts to ban those, and in fact they were heavily censored as well at the time, and reviled by the tabloids, and it's just quite incredible that that even at that time, 1983, 84, that horror films were being blamed for society's ills. I mean, the government isn't making horror films, so the government's making horrors of its own.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut out earlier there. Having internet problems.
Was that Ghosts and Monsters?
It was Ghosts and Monsters. Yeah, or just the torrential rain I've got outside here.
Yeah, the Devil's Rain.
Hopefully, it's at the moment it's okay. I think you can all hear me, all right? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, before your internet go nuts, I was asking you in your book you describe very in a very precise way how things happened. For example, in the scene where police raid the video rental store, it was very realistic. Okay, so the question is, you just documented yourself to write those, or you have some first-hand reports from some people someone that told you the real experience they lived?
I think I was 8 in 1983, so I was kind of aware of it though, because my dad was a big horror film fan, and we used to have what we called the Pirate Man come round with a briefcase full of videos. He's in the book, and I remember them saying, some of these films you can't get hold of, and I was like, why is that? And not that and later on, maybe not when I was 8, but later on I was sneaking downstairs and watching these films. But I think it was more of an interest in that period. I mean, my video days came later in the 80s. My coming of age at the video shop, should I say, was sort of the end of the 80s, really. But I was very interested in this strange pocket of history, and always have been. And as for sort of the scene in Dead Leaves where the police raid the shop, it sort of came from just reading about the period and reading about what was happening to people, to proprietors of video shops during that time. and just soaking up all that history and knowledge, really, and just researching. I had a few older friends that sort of told me what it was like at that time, and it all fed into the book. It all fed into the book, and I took some liberties with various things. I certainly in the book I've condensed a lot of the history into a single sort of couple of days, so just for narrative reasons. But it wasn't too far away from that, as far as I know. I mean, they were raiding video shops up and down the country, and they were taking any titles that they deemed unsavory. I know there's a famous story of the Best Little Whorehouse in Texas being taken, the Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds musical, because they were very worried about that title, so that was confiscated. And people were prosecuted. People that ran video shops who had nothing to do with making the film were prosecuted. And I think there's probably one, maybe two cases of people actually going to prison, which is incredible.
When they started doing the guy, Nightmare on a Damaged Brain guy, wasn't it, or something, or distributed Nightmare on a Damaged Brain? Didn't he go to prison or something?
Yes, I think it was that film. Yes, it was that film. Which I've never made that connection before, but that is the first film that's mentioned in the book. Interesting.
Right.
Anyway, it's always been a period that fascinated me. The video shop was certainly a mecca for me growing up. I used to just hang out in there, and what was amazing about that time was nobody knew what was being made or what was coming out. It's not like now when you know what's being made and coming out in 2027. You just go in a video shop and see these covers, like Graham's cover, and what is this? Where's this come from? This looks amazing. And it was very exciting, especially to a kid, a film obsessed kid, a horror film obsessed kid. It was.
There's a very funny sort of aspect to that as well. You just made me think about the fact that you're talking about you didn't have access to what was coming out, what was being released, and quite often you just wouldn't know about certain films. The one thing the Video Nasty list did provide was a list of those titles that you really wanted to see, and actually mostly these films became popular classics of the horror genre simply because they're on that list, and actually they weren't even necessarily good films, but they became
a lot of them weren't
most desirable titles of all. And for a lot of people it was the challenge was to actually get to see all of those films on the list, films which nobody was going to damn about otherwise. So in fact the government did a great service to the horror industry.
The thing is, I wouldn't. As bad as it was, I wouldn't change it for the world of what happened, because I like you said, it sort of made it exciting. Maybe it didn't feel like it at the time when you was being denied these films, but the thrill of the chase afterwards, tracking them down and finding a copy of these films, was just something that I'll never ever forget. I can remember getting a copy of Faces of Death, and I just thought, it seemed like I had a snuff movie, you know what I mean? And I wanted to record it, and the only recording I could do was downstairs by connecting my video machine up to my parents' video machine. And I did that, but I switched over the channel so they didn't see what was being recorded. And I was absolutely cutting myself that they was going to come in and see, well, what are you recording there? And switch it on, and there was an autopsy on the screen or something, you know what I mean? But yeah, it was crazy times, and not good in one way, but we wouldn't be here now, would we, if it didn't happen? And certainly interesting.
You're absolutely right, though. It had a reverse effect because it made these films notorious.
Most of them films would have disappeared. Obscurity.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were
and most of them were not good. There's one or two that have stood the test of time, like the one that we're mainly talking about, because it's a genuinely brilliant film, but most of them weren't. But they're now part of this strange little pocket of history that that will always be on that list. That list can always be found, and those
Yeah.
films will be, sought after, collected. They probably would have disappeared long ago if they weren't on
Oh,
there.
absolutely. Yeah, just forgotten because most of them were
Yeah.
forgettable. But
I think
Am
that
I, am I
many of
right in thinking? Sorry, go on.
I think that most of those movies come from Italy, and it was pretty fun that a lot of stuff like
got your
from
fair share.
Dario Argento, Cannibal Holocaust, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And it was pretty fun that those were not censored in Italy.
Yeah.
But because before this live, I would like to be prepared as much as possible, and I tried to find what kind of censorship we had in Italy, and it come out that in Italy we were more worried about pornography.
Right.
So in the 1972, the all let's say the reel of the films of Last Tango in Paris, they were burned. They were burned because the movie was intended as a terrible movie with I don't know what the word, well, with very very bad argumentation. I mean, and so it's just a couple of original master of the movie were saved in a museum nowadays, but the movie was burned in a public plaza. It was some kind of more even aggressive censorship at that time. But for the horror, I don't know why, but every movie that came out, it was not so much censored like in the UK. And it's pretty strange because here in Italy we have the church. I mean, there is Vatican. Everything is, probably there was a, in effect, to be clear, in Italy in the 80s there was a lot of very good horror movies production. Nowadays we have nothing. It's pretty strange that of the times change,
Yeah.
and things changes.
You made an
So
interesting point. Yeah, sorry there. Sorry to interrupt. And it was about the power of the church, I guess, in a way. That the first horror imagery I remember seeing as a kid was religious imagery. It was some of it was quite violent and it's certainly very gory. And you can walk into any church and see a sort of basically a naked man nailed to a piece of wood, and with blood pouring out of the wounds. And that was kind of real horror, and that's really where I had my introduction to horror as such. And in illustrations I had in a Bible I was given as a christening present, which illustrations which terrified me because they were depicting quite horrific scenes. And so I just thought it was always very funny that the church would find horror offensive when in fact the Bible is actually probably the world's first horror anthology. I mean, literally everything's in there. You can actually throw into a horror film. It's been there for thousands of years. And so it was another aspect of the whole video nasty thing, which I just found very hypocritical.
yeah, it's pretty cool. Talking about raids, do you know this book? This is a book about the story of Palace Picture, and I found a passage that is pretty fun because Graham, a couple of years ago, while I was writing my essay on the story of the franchise of Evil Dead, in particular a chapter about the arts in Evil Dead. Okay, so Graham was telling me where was the first time he have seen the movie, that he was in the Scala Theater, that is very close to the main place in which Palace Picture was. Well, substantially, this book talk about the particular day in which police raided Palace Picture to remove all the stuff. Okay, I'm going to read it because it's pretty fun and it's not too long. Okay, so during the summer of 1983, Mary Whitehouse, the housewife and moral crusader, screened a show of horror highlights to Tory MPs at their annual party conference. The Evil Dead was billed by White House as the #1 nasty. Okay, despite the fact that the film censor had passed it earlier that year, and that even the video release was properly certified, which could not be said for hundreds of other films at the video market at the same time. Egged on by a rampant right-wing press crusading against video nasties, the Tories decided to act. The police, empowered by the Obscene Publication Act, initially decided to raid video retailers, but soon changed their line of attack to distributors. Embrush Palace was the perfect prey. Fortunately, a call into the Scala, tipping Rappaport off about the forthcoming raids. A bunch of Evil Dead cassettes were swiftly removed to a local church, but the police then went to the main warehouse, from where they took the master tapes. This was pretty peculiar, but Evil Dead was saved because it was put in a church. Pretty nice as an episode. I suppose that in UK this nasty video thing is still an open wound, because during this week, while I'm preparing myself for this live, I've read one comic and I see one movie. There is one movie very recent. It's called The Censor. I don't know if you know if you know
it.
it.
Yeah.
And particularly the protagonist is a woman that is one of the censorship board.
I know.
And she mixed reality with her personal story, and she go nuts substantially. But that movie is like a sort of documentary. It put you in the shoes of a censor with some some nasty outcome. And I as I said, I read this comic by Mario Covone. This comic is pretty fun because is another fantastic fictional story about substantially a monster that kill person like the person were killed in the nasty movies. So the police decided to arrest a movie director because he is the best fit for for that period. So I mean, I suppose that considering all the stuff that come out talking about video nasty, in my opinion, is something like a open wound for you, or maybe not, or it's just fun to talk about it. I don't know.
I mean, it's interesting. I was reading today about how certain it's mostly in America, of course. So sort of Republican sort of amongst the Republicans, gentlemen who are finding Barbie extremely offensive because it's apparently incredibly woke, and it disrupts the sort of obviously the patriarchal system which underpins the Republican point of view. And you kind of think, well, actually, this film's not really, it's about a sort of little girl's toy. What on earth are sort of these men sort of worried about? And it's just it's curious how you can find offence at anything, absolutely anything. And so today it's Barbie. Okay, it might have been Evil Dead in 1983. The thing is, people will find offence wherever they want it, and if it fulfills a function which is might just be simple as publicity, or it might just fulfill a sort of propaganda purpose. Offence is everywhere you want it to be, and or it's nowhere essentially. I mean, the thing is, most people who watch The Evil Dead didn't go out and kill anybody, and whereas a lot of people who didn't watch The Evil Dead might have done. The thing is, it's sociopaths, and if you're of that sort of, if you have that criminal intent, any excuse will do anyway. Though it's nothing to do with what you read or what you've seen. It's kind of very much is what is in the mind, and I'll go on to say that I enjoy going to the Fright Fest every year. One of the biggest horror festivals in Britain, which celebrates horror films. And it's always very, very busy, and you'll meet the sort of most empathetic, wonderful people you could find in any street anywhere. I mean, you know, and it's all about empathy. The things people don't have empathy are dangerous people, and they don't generally. They're not the ones watching films and reading books anyway. Though, I mean, I'm far more worried about you know a Republican governor than I am anybody who sits and watches horror films.
Yeah, for sure.
I would like to show you another piece of the interview with Sam Raimi. That was pretty fun. And then I have found on the Book of the Dead WS website a full list of the censorship stuff in the Evil Dead by the BFFC. And there is even a video, always by Rob McLean from Book of the Dead WS, that show the original version versus the cut version. And it is pretty fun. I would like to show you some piece because I would like to see your reaction about this kind of cuts that were made on the movie. So I'm going to show you, first of all, Sam Raimi again. This is this one. Here,
Possible. I do agree with you that films can influence people. But I do believe that in the horror movies that I make, violence is specifically portrayed to create a feeling of horror from the audience. Unlike some television shows which do glamorize violence, possibly, and could make it more attractive. Specifically, it's a horror movie because you're afraid of it. And so I disagree with you that this type of picture would make someone want to emulate that type of violence. I know that there is no conclusive study as to the nature of violence on films.
But, gentlemen,
well, at this moment they obviously interrupt him, and there is another piece I love of this one because it's a very long show. Okay, but there is another part I love in which a woman tells Sam Raimi that substantially he does everything for profit, and I love this part.
But
no. Maybe this one. Okay.
No, I make the.
But let the lady right at the back and the far side have a say.
I agree. I don't agree with that guy over there that it's just for kicks. What it basically boils down to is that guy that writes about it and that guy that makes a profit out of it, and all this violence against women and all the blood and the gut is for profit. It's basically profit.
Well, Sam, presumably it is for profit. I mean, presumably you make it so that people actually pay to go and see it.
No, I make the pictures primarily to entertain the audience. That is my goal. And on Evil Dead, the motion picture.
Why don't you make it free viewing then?
On Evil Dead, the motion picture, I actually went into debt to be able to make that movie.
But you also said that to get investors, you first.
Yeah, it's shameful.
It's painful to watch. I've seen it before, but it's painful to watch because poor Sam. I mean, he's obviously an intelligent guy surrounded by a bunch of buffoons. So
yeah, something like that.
It's awful. It is awful.
He seemed very sad when they told him we made this movie for profit. No,
and he seems to be the only sensible guy in the room, and he's not aggressive. Like I said, Graham, he's just like, he's just being nice about it and trying to get his piece across, and you've got idiots like not screaming at him, but
well, also they're people who would not have gone to see the film anyway, though they're not.
Probably haven't seen the film, yeah.
They have no interest in it at all. And
like Lady Whitehouse,
the woman had a point about violence, misogyny in films, but that's to target Sam Raimi for that. I mean, it's been cinema since the cinema existed, and it's all over television. It was pretty standard fare in any film, in any genre as well. So
if anything,
for her to target Sam was just, I mean, that was just ignorant, really, because she didn't have to look at any horror film for violence against women. I mean, it just existed in mainstream TV, for goodness sake. It actually existed in mainstream comedy. Really, it's absurd to make him the target of something which has existed for a long time elsewhere, and probably in a very sick TV program she would have enjoyed herself.
Yeah, I think Evil Dead's quite unique as well in a way that it's the male that's been tortured the most.
Well, yeah, that's, of course, yeah. I mean, that
which is
not of interest to her. She was making a point, and valid or not. So it's odd how people will focus on whatever they feel is going to push their point, and I mean that's what people do in an argument, I suppose. But in a debate, I did feel that clearly Sam Raimi wasn't being given the chance to get anything across, because really the questions he was being asked weren't particularly interesting, and in fact he wasn't being asked questions. He was pretty much being told what the answers were to their questions.
I think that's what makes it so painful, because it's like you said, it's not a question. It's not giving him a chance to answer, a chance to explain, or he's just being told what a bad person he is, effectively, in front of a crowd of people, and it's just awful. I mean, look, not being funny. Look at him now compared to the rest of them. I mean,
Stefan from Bruce Campbell Memes is doing a good point. Evil Dead is more about self-harm and being forced to harm those who you love. I think is getting the point, I suppose.
There was another interesting aspect. We're talking about police raiding video shops for what's being described as harmful content. And anybody who works in the NHS will tell you that the biggest killer in Britain in hospitals is smoking, and certainly everybody was smoking in the 80s. I mean, it was like mainstream TV was full of people just puffing away endlessly, and it was glamorized, and yet nobody was. The police weren't raiding tobacconists.
No.
It's just again, it's just like hypocrisy is just staggering, really.
Because the government make money off the tax, don't they, from the cigarettes?
And also, they get lobbied heavily by tobacco industries, and they a lot of lobbying went on when they decided to ban cigarette smoking advertising, because literally it was just everywhere, and despite everybody knowing that actually it just killed people, it was just everywhere. But even now, the lobbying goes on. I mean, lobbying goes on for tobacco, alcohol, betting in particular, as well. Is pretty strong at the moment. I mean, that's a real contentious thing within football right now, and there are so many aspects of society which are just broken, and yet they're not the target. Of the tabloids at all, or the government. In fact, they're paying the government to exist. And that was very much the case at the time.
I'm going to show you the page from Robert McLean, Book of the Dead WS, that show some material from the censorship.
The best Evil Dead site out there by far. I mean, the knowledge that guy's got is just
bonkers. He made an outstanding work here. And can you see it? Okay, I'm going to zoom it because it's a little bit small. Okay, he showed the complete list of this is the, let's say, the X rating, and this is the British Board of Film Censors that has been passed. Evil Dead has been passed. And here it describes all the moments in which the movie was cut, and it's very interesting. And in particular, one of the stuff that make me laugh is that the raping, obviously, the 3 rapes is obviously a controversial scene. In fact, Sam Raimi, let's say, deny he would like to have that scene at the end. In the same interview I show you, at a certain point he says something like that he regrets to add this scene in a sort of way. But
I don't like that scene either. I mean, Evil Dead's my favorite film of all time by an absolute country mile. I don't particularly like the tree rape scene. It's out the tone, I think, to the rest of the movie for me.
I agree with you, Michael, as well. It's I always found it uncomfortable, but it just tonally doesn't fit in with the rest of the film.
Yeah.
You know, it is gratuitous, and I think, you know, Sam Raimi felt it at the time, and actually, you know, regrets that it was in there. I mean, he just made that very clearly.
Well, he's barely a teenager, wasn't he, when he made it? I mean, you know. But yeah, it's certainly a scene that I
love all the build up to it. I love all the build up to that scene.
Yeah.
I fully agree with you. But the thing that makes me laugh is that they removed the prolonged screw into the ankle of a pencil. That makes me laugh a lot. I'm going to show you the scene, because there is the wall.
Great shot.
There is the wall. There is the wall. Let's say there is the wall sequences there, because in that page I showed you, there is even a link to the video that Rob's make, showing the wall stuff cut, and this is the scene we are talking about. Okay, the scene about the pencil. On the left, you can see the US theatrical print. On the right, the censored VHS from BBFCC.
Yeah.
This make me laugh. I mean, this whole video make me. I mean, they cut a lot of stuff. I mean, for example, here, I don't know. They cut this one. I mean, so the scene practically lost any kind of sense without this scene, no? Because they show the end.
Yeah.
I mean,
have that released somewhere. Where is it? I can't see it.
And Evil Dead is not. I mean, watching it today is not so violent. It was violent maybe for those days, no? Recently, yes,
that's the 1990 reissue.
Yes, yes. And
Graham
told
the one
me
I
even
had.
the cover.
Yeah,
If
1990, wasn't it?
If I'm not wrong, Graham told me that you have to redraw completely the cover, right? Because those are different, right?
Yeah, basically, I said I would redo the cover because I was never happy with it, and so Ray basically recreated exactly the same thing, but just in a different way. But so the title was at the bottom, and only at the point they'd approved it and the artwork had been done, so they then decide that actually the title needs to be at the top, because the way videos were racked in the old days,
like Woolworths and stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And so again, the only solution was to repaint it, which is what I did. So there were two versions of that.
Does that original one exist, Graham, with the logo at the bottom?
They both do. I don't know where they are. I
don't think it ever came out though, did it?
No, it never actually happened at all. Though it was just literally the point where they then decided to change it. Hadn't print or anything at all. Though, but yeah, and I did actually see the original list that was presented to Palace of the cuts that were required, literally on the actual letter-headed BBFC paper from James Furman. And was it 30? Were there 13 or was it 11 cuts? 13, I seem to remember.
Right.
But it's to see that most of them seem to be mostly about the length of time something went on. It's like about reducing the amount of time. And I know there was somebody being hit with the head with a piece of wood, and it was about the number of times they were hit rather than actually the actual action itself. So and it's nothing new there. I mean, this happened with we referenced the Hammer films before, and of course I'm a big Hammer fan. You can just see behind me, but all those films were censored, and quite often it's just the length of time something was happen, or just a snatched moment. The glimpse of something was removed, and some of these little moments are being reinstated in newer releases, but largely they're kind of lost moments, and really didn't make any difference in the day. it just meant that actually you weren't getting the film that was made.
It was a long time before I realised that the original Palace one was actually cut. Because I think
yes, that's what I was saying. There was a
very
list
well edited, wasn't it?
For the X certificate.
Yeah.
There was an adult certificate. It's deemed that adults weren't actually adult enough to actually kind of cope with a few more seconds of a pencil in a rubber ankle. Which is crazy, really. And the fact that
But even then, it was well edited, so it wasn't obvious. It was quite well done because it wasn't obvious cuts like some films. They just lightly got scissors and went, "Yeah, take that out."
Well, yeah,
it was actually edited really well that it didn't look cut, and I was convinced for years because I suppose because it was the banned version as well that it was going to be uncut until I found out it wasn't, and I was like, well, that surprised me, but. Like I say, days before the internet, where it was more difficult to find things out.
If I'm not wrong, Mike, you own one of the Not Guilty VHS, right?
Yes, I am.
Those are very, very cool. I mean,
yeah.
Practically, if I'm not wrong, the story is something like that. As soon the movie was considered a movie to be banned, there were a lot of courts talking about the movie, but in each court, the movie won the cause. So substantially, they reissued the VHS with the Not Guilty label on it.
But I believe that the cassette didn't come with it. From what I know, and maybe Graham will know more, but from what I gather, it was just the sleeves were sent to video shops, with the intention of it coming back, because it actually says underneath. Hang on, I need to put my glasses on it. Can't read it. It says BBFC video certificate applied for in small writing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was literally sent as a marketing tool. And, something for
just sort of sent to video
what year
shops
is that video?
I don't actually know. I mean, it would have been after it was cleared, I guess.
Better.
So
you can see it better. I'm showing it zoomed from always from the Book of the Dead WS website. There is a scan of the.
I don't know when. I mean, I've had it a long time, but
it still has the X certificate on it though, rather than the 18. So that give you the date anyway, though.
But this was another one I want to ask you about, Graham. What's the story with this one? I mean, this was only a promo sleeve. It was the proposed 1990. No, 19. From what I gathered, it was going to come out the same time as Evil Dead 2, but something happened.
I don't know anything about it.
There's your original artwork, but with an 18, and the side's different as well. It's more, more in line with the Palace stuff that was coming out then.
Yeah, I've no idea.
No,
no, I probably did the artwork for it, but
it's the same artwork as the original.
No, I'm talking
exactly
about
it's the original. Yeah, it's the same as the original Video Nasty one. But it is a promo sleeve, and it's got all the information on the inside. It was going to come out, like I say, same time as Evil Dead 2, but it didn't happen. So, but I don't know why. I've never been able to find out why the plug was pulled.
Yeah.
But I mean, it came out in 1990, but I think this one was due in 87 or something like that.
Again, it's probably a promotional tool which was sent to as a marketing thing to distributors, but it may have been at that point then when it actually was going to be manufactured that we went with a different cover.
Right, but it was a few years before it eventually came out, like this. I mean, that was 1990. This would have been about 87.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened there.
No idea.
Nobody seems to know why, because I even got a poster for it as well, saying it's back on it. Your artwork, but that big, and like a video shop poster, was saying it's back on it with the 18 logo. Actually signed by you. I bought it.
If it's 87, was it? If it's 87, was it meant to come out with the release of Evil Dead 2?
Yeah, it even says on the inside, like it was, it was going to be released to sort of coincide with the Palace release of Evil Dead 2. But like I said, it didn't happen. I even tried to order it myself. I still got a letter from the company saying, sorry, but we can't get it for you. You know, so I kept.
Well, I wonder if maybe they were just wanting to just concentrate purely on the new film and actually not muddy it with the previous film.
Oh.
Which is
just baffling because obviously it was intended. Oh yeah. This is another cool item I got. I don't even remember these in the video shops. Used to send them out to the video shop guys. You know, the weekly trades. So I managed to find one with Evil Dead at #1. It's just yeah.
It did make Price quite a lot of money.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. But yeah, I think another one of my favourite ones I got as well was this one, which is it's the original one, but it's actually a review copy. Yeah, that's really hard to find. I think. Well, I've only ever found one, and I don't know anyone else that got one. So there you go. So yeah.
Mike is a great
I think it might have been the last. I don't know this, and I've even asked somebody who worked at the BFC that it might have been the last horror film in Britain.
Okay.
But also I know that with the, you've got a fistful of Evil Dead.
Yeah, they're all slightly different though because it's 3 Betamax with the 3 different color labels, 3 VHS with the 3 different color labels. The not guilty one, the review copy,
the guilty one.
So yeah, there's that pile there, pretty much.
That's an impressive collection, Michael.
I am happy to have just one percent.
Treasure trove.
But I've always said it's the length of time I've been collecting the stuff is why I have so much. I mean, you know, you can see that behind it. That's pretty much all Evil Dead trilogy stuff, even down to Army of Darkness costumes that was screen used as well.
Fantastic.
It's like a museum in here.
I was there once, and I didn't rob anything. I didn't get anything. I mean, I was there, I slept there, but my hands are clear.
Yeah. But like I say, it's purely like I started collecting it, you know, as young as back in 1983. I mean, it would have been purely like magazines with it in and things like that because I never really had money, and I suppose you didn't have merchandise then, did you? So,
no,
as soon as I got a job, you know, and I started buying stuff, and it's an over 30-odd years collection here. Yeah, a bit mad, like, but you know.
Did Michael, when you first saw Evil Dead, was it immediate? Did it get you straight away?
Straight away. Well, the thing is,
hooks in straight away.
I tell you, even though I said earlier on about you know, the video sleeve sort of attracting attention, it's not the first time I heard about it. I'll show you. I got something here. I'll quickly show you because it's I usually tell people this. When I was at, you know, about 12 years old or something like that, I always liked horror films because I grew up watching them. You know, my parents used to let us, me and my sister, watch the Hammer films on a Saturday night. You'd have the double bill, and you know, we were allowed to watch the first one, but we had to go to bed for the second one because obviously it's getting late. And so we always liked horror films, me and my sister. But I also like sci-fi films, and the film that totally captivated me in the early 80s was E.T. Still one of my favorite films now. Absolutely magical. So I was buying everything, you know, to do with E.T. back when I was 12 years old. And I picked up that magazine, Starburst, there, because it had E.T. and Spielberg on it. And I remember flicking through it and I saw that. And that's what made me wanted to see the film. So this magazine here is the reason I watched Evil Dead.
Which year is it?
I don't know if it says the manual, but it would have been 82. I would have said. I can't see a date, but it would have been 82. It would have been when E.T. was a new film, which was in 82. But then I can remember seeing adverts for Evil Dead on the TV, like little 20-second, 30-second, because they would also advertise in Basket Case around the similar sort of time, I guess. and then obviously then eventually it showed up in our local video shop, which is now a beauty saloon, however you say it. And they went from there, and then it warped me then for the rest of my life, I guess.
So Andrew, Michael is definitely the main character of your book. Oh no, he's gone again. we lost him again. When he come back, I'm going to tell him. While we're waiting for Andrew to come back, or whether we are close to the end of this live. But
I think
as
he
we are
was saying that he's actually going, so I don't think he's coming back.
okay. Okay, you have to go. Yeah, don't worry. Okay. So I'm going to send him my salutes when I write to him.
Well, I showed this to you earlier on. This is from Michael. You have that amazing collection. The only thing I have here is this, which is
it's a great.
Yeah,
original artwork.
You can give that to me and you will, please, Graham. Was that the one that was on the wall at your exhibition? Because I went to your exhibition.
It's just the one, yeah.
Yeah, because I went to see that because you had the Evil Dead 2 art there as well, didn't you?
And Nightmare on Elm Street as well.
And the Nightmare on Elm Street, yeah, I remember seeing that. But isn't it true that is not the original one because you had to redo it because the original one was lost?
The Evil Dead.
Correct?
No, this is the original painting here. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, okay.
The VHS artwork is the one that was.
Oh, that's the one. Okay, right. Okay, I get you. I know one of them you said before when missing.
Which was a problem often had then, that you'd send stuff off, physical artwork, you wouldn't get it back. And that now because it's all
right. So that one there that I saw is the original one, yeah?
It is, absolutely. But anyway, I've got a very quick plug as well, if I may, because it is relevant. I've got a new book coming out in November. Actually, before that, hopefully. It might even be the end of September. But I've got a chapter in there, well, a couple of pages really, which explains how I created the Evil Dead artwork in terms of inspiration and literally how I got the job. The work was in the folio at the time, so it's literally all about how the Evil Dead poster exists in that form, and unexpected inspiration as well, which is I think you find quite amusing.
Yeah, I'll definitely get that book. I mean, I got your last one, hung, drawn, and something.
Executed, yeah.
Executed. I got that one, and I never managed to get your big posh one. You remember that one?
I do, yeah. I have nothing to do with the production of that, and I never saw a penny out of it either, though. But
no way.
There are copies of it still available.
Yeah. So I know it's very expensive, wasn't it? And I actually took enough money with me to the old exhibition, hoping I could buy it there, but there wasn't any copies. I think I might have actually contacted you before I went. Actually, I mean,
yeah, they had about 25 copies, I think, on that exhibition night, and they didn't really think it through at all. They were sold, but yeah, they're you can find copies at the Proud Gallery, which is in Charing Cross Road. They have a whole stack of copies there apparently.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. Do you know what the price is, Graham? Is it still the same or?
Yeah, they never. I argued they needed to reduce the price to sell, to get rid of the stock, and they were never interested at all. They just really were not that great at. The whole thing was
a beautiful book, but yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, the whole thing was a financial disaster, I think. It's just ill-conceived. I mean, horror fans don't have lots of money. As simple as that. And I just said, it has to be a cheap book. And we made Home Drawn and Executed, and the new one with the same price as the last one. It's the minimum price really, without losing money. So hopefully. I did try to get as much of the original book of Drawing Blood into Hung, Drawn and Executed to, just kind of redress the balance there and ensure all that stuff was available. And I've added just, I think, 3 old pieces into the new book, but the new book's just all new stuff otherwise. So.
Right, okay. And when is it available, did you say?
Well, you can pre-order it now, but
Amazon?
I think you can go to Amazon, but Carrero Press is K-E-R-O Carrero. don't ask me to spell things on screen. But Quero Press, you'll find if you type in Hung, Drawn, Executed into Amazon, it'll give you the publisher's name.
Okay, it's the same publisher as that one then, yeah?
This one, I suppose, just a moment. Here it is. I'm going to show you the page of their book. Show, present.
The thing is, I think, when we said before about the Evil Dead,
this one, right? Nightmare on One Sheet.
That's right, yeah, that's the one.
Oh, that's it, is it? Okay, nice. So when you said it before about the, I said, and other people have said about the Evil Dead, people probably picked it up because of the sleeve. I know for a fact, because I'm one of them who buys Arrow titles and stuff like that because of your artwork.
Well, thank you.
So it's all right. It's like, yeah, it's got Graham Humphreys artwork. I'm having that one. I don't care what the film's like.
It's no guarantee of the film, I'm afraid.
You are?
There's no
Can't be
guarantee.
responsible for the film. No. But we know it looks lovely on. It looks lovely on the shelf, if nothing else.
And obviously not.
But yeah, no, obviously we hope you continue doing what you do for as long as possible, because you are you're the best out there. It's just no question.
I fully agree.
Very generous, thank you.
Yeah.
No, I'm not giving up yet. Anyway, though.
Yeah, good.
2 more years in me yet, I think.
Before
do you ever do? I wanted to ask you this before, but I forgot now. I've just thought of it. Do you ever? I suppose you would have in the beginning, but now obviously where you're probably very busy. Do you ever do a piece of art for yourself? And think, I'd like to do this. It's something I like, and I'm just making it for myself. And
I would love to, but literally, I'm all my time is spent doing commercial stuff, and when I'm not doing the commercial work, the last thing I want to do is do any more painting. So I need to go and do other things. So at this moment, no. Perhaps if I do find that I need to retire at some point, then that would be the time. But it's just not. I literally do not have the time.
No, I get that. Yeah, I mean, I always think because two of my other passions are not on Evil Dead level, but is Iron Maiden and War of the Worlds, and and I've always thought if I could paint like you, I'd be doing War of the Worlds pictures all the time, and and painting Eddie in different scenarios and stuff. And but yeah, obviously it's different for yourself, but
well, an artist like me can do without the competition anyway, so don't even start.
Surprised you haven't done an Iron Maiden sleeve. Come to that, mind.
Yeah,
have you ever been asked?
No,
I know Derek Riggs used to be the regular, but he hasn't done it for a while now, is he? So I don't know if you know.
No, I mean, it's right that there a lot of other artists out there and doing the work, and it's we all find our place, and it'd be a very dull world if one person was doing everything, and it's,
of course,
also for me it's inspiring to see other people's work anyway, and I love other illustrators' work, and it helps me kind of develop my own style and evolve it along by being inspired by other people.
I know Tom Sullivan. He can't speak highly enough of your work. Tom Sullivan.
Well, of course, I met him many years ago. I mean, I think literally it must have been I think it must have been at the point I was working on the Evil Dead. Actually, he was in Britain doing some publicity for advanced publicity. So
my daughter on the screen there.
Right.
I used to draw ET when I was.
I didn't see this. I didn't see this, but now I need to
Stop
see
it, Rosie.
Rosie, send those to us privately.
Yeah, you probably got them somewhere nowhere. They weren't very good, Graham. Don't worry, I'm not going to, give you competition with my ET drawings. It's fine.
I'm not.
But yeah, it's it's absolutely brilliant, and I mean, just love it. Love your work. Love everything.
Okay, so your course at the Michael. Rosie will send out.
I'll find them. No, you won't.
I'm very sure that we will see this very soon. So before leaving, you let go, even because we spent almost.
Got to show you this, Graham, to see if you approve. Because I living in a house now where I grew up in. My parents passed away, and the house got left to me and my sister, and I bought it and so forth. And then when I went up in the bedroom to clear the bedroom where we used to be my bedroom, I found this stuck to the wall behind the wardrobe, and it was something. Are you still there?
I put Mike in first side.
You still there? Can you
Yeah,
see it or?
Yeah, we can see it. I put you in the first
see it,
screen
I can't.
so anyone can see you. Ah, here it is. It's one of your
So
drawings.
it's my version of your artwork, Graham. I hope you approve.
I do. In fact, it's better than my VHS sleeve.
Yeah, I don't know how old I was when I done that. Probably about 13 or something. Yeah, that's about as good as I got mine. So
fantastic.
I was so pleased when I found it though, because even though I'd forgot about it, as soon as I saw it, I remembered. It was like, oh my god, that's so cool. Peel it off the wall carefully and stick it in my collection.
That's great. Before leaving, you let go, because we are almost 2 hours. I mean, I have fun talking, but I don't want you go ahead for another 2 hours, because I think you need to go to sleep too, and even the guys are watching us. I would like to show you one fragment of my interview with Lee Cronin, and we talked about censorship for his movie, and what he said to me was pretty fun. So I would like to show you because I think it's pretty fit with the whole discussion we had here. Even if I already published the interview with Lee Cronin, I think that this could fit very well with us. So I'm going to show you this piece of the interview. He's arriving. I have to skip for a certain minute, something like here.
In the world now.
Thank you. So regarding the rating, it was intended to reach that kind of result. I mean, it's hard to get it without removing too much stuff from your initial idea.
Yeah, it wasn't difficult. Like, I actually, you hear stories about having to make editorial changes. There's too much blood or whatever. I just got word that we got an R rating. That was it. There was really, I've got a vague memory that maybe I was asked, and I couldn't put my hand on the Bible and swear to this in court, but I feel like maybe I had to maybe just change, like remove 18 frames of something around the wood chipper scene. Maybe. I need to check with somebody if that actually happened. Maybe it was a dream, but I have a weird memory. But that was it. We didn't get hit with an NC-17 cert, therefore we weren't fighting to get it to become an R-rated. Like what I don't know how your certification works in Italy. What was the rating in Italy?
In Italy it was like PG-14, so 14 can be the movie with parents. And
so okay.
What I see in UK, it's 18. So the movie has different rating.
The same here in Ireland. The film was in 18s, and actually, quite interestingly, because there was 2 trailers initially put out. There was the red band trailer and the green band trailer, and the green band trailer was banned from being played in front of movies below 18s in Ireland. So we actually had to make a couple of changes. So the trailer in Ireland is actually unique in comparison to the rest of the world, that we actually had to change a few shots and substitute some things to actually get the green band in cinemas with movies below an 18 certificate. Obviously, it could have played with 18s. The red band can play with 18s, but we needed the green band to go in front of movies like Megan or, other horror movies that were out at that time that bring people to the cinema and that people are checking out. So yeah, there was that. And we also had a battle because in Ireland and the UK, the film was advertised on the side of buses. We also had a battle with the artwork for that as well, which was deemed to be too threatening. So in the end, we actually couldn't get our artwork. The artwork was banned in the UK from going on the side of buses. And then we were able in time to get an alternate artwork to put on buses in Ireland as well. So yeah, we'd a few little battles along the way, but all in all, thankfully, we were able to have the platform to promote the movie as much as we did.
So I mean, time changes, but everything. I mean, time changes a lot, but at the end, there is still censorship, there is still banning. I mean, it's pretty cool to see, even if in 2033 this thing still happen in a different and let's say a more subtle way, but still happens, no? Oh, okay. I think I mean, except you want to tell something particular, you have some argument to discuss, some specific arguments. Michael is going to show us something.
Just going to just show him that I still got his painting on my wall, proudly on my wall.
I'd love to see it again.
There it is.
There it is. The diet Michael, right?
Yes, it's Michael in the cellar.
Yes, he is in the bottom here.
Love it. And my quad there, I think. Yeah, there we go. Just wanted to show you so you knew we're looking after it.
Thank you very much.
That's right. Really appreciate it. I'm very privileged to have that, you know.
Yes, it was very nice to have you, all of you here. Sometimes, sorry if I forgot my English because I'm still in the process.
Oh, you're absolutely fine.
Of
I
making
always say to you, Emmanuel, your English is better than my Italian, so never apologize to me.
I know, but even the fact that I'm trying to bring up something in English, I need to be more and more, let's say, fluent.
But you're only going to do that by doing these things and learning as you go along, aren't you? And
I think I am better than 8 years ago. 8 years ago, I was in US for a documentary.
Oh yeah,
Eight to the Deadites. I talked something like 10, 20 minutes, but in the final cut it was only 10 seconds because my
Have
English
you seen that, Graham?
was shit. My English was shit. I mean, so I'm grateful that I am in there because my English at the moment at that time was completely fucked up. I mean, now it's a little bit better because I talk a lot for work, but I'm still not fluent. Sometimes I forgot words and I miss them. I miss meaning. Maybe I can tell a simple word and I try to describe something very complex. So I still have to work on wrapping up, complex topics. Okay.
It's a fun documentary. We're both in it, me and Emmanuel, and I think it's on Shudder, or it has been on Shudder.
It's there. It's on Tubi in US.
Right.
It's on Tubi on US and for free too. There is some. I have the DVD in, but it's from Denmark.
Denmark, same. Yeah.
And I would like, before closing, I would like to announce the next one live that I'm going to organize with the guys that admin the page on Facebook, Army of Darkness and Evil Dead Comics. I got to talk with him. He's a nice guy from Australia, and we got to have both drawer and the illustration and
oh nice
oh my god, I missed the word, the screen, the writer of this comic, Army of Darkness West versus Bubba Otep. We are going to have Scott Duval, that is the writer, and Vincenzo Federici, that fun enough to know is an Italian guy that draw American comics, and I got his contact by an Australian guy. So it's this thing is very fun.
Went around the world to get the contact you got there in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to interview these guys, and I am I'm working on other more lives on Evil Dead Rise and stuff. I mean, I have some contacts. I'm trying to working out to have almost once for a week or once any 2 weeks to try to generate content. So hopefully my English will be better getting on. Okay. It's a Evil Dead Rise replica book, right?
Yeah, made by a very talented guy called Ollie.
It can be opened.
He said he was going to watch this stream, so I said
Ah, okay.
Make
That's
sure he
nice.
saw it.
That's nice. Okay. Thank you very much to all you
Thank
guys.
you thank you, Graham, for
Thank you,
spending
Michael.
time with
Thank
us.
you, Michael. Well, it's been really good fun, and shame we lost Andrew, but
Yeah.
we had a good conversation with him whilst he was there.
Yeah. I know I had trouble getting on in the beginning, as you could probably tell. I tried to get on early, but well, it's just I don't know. I got there in the end.
Ghosts and monsters.
Oh, it's just an old tablet, and it's all right once it gets going. But I should have started. I mean, I did start about 10 to, but then when it wouldn't connect, I'm like, oh, why didn't I start this earlier? Why didn't I start this earlier? But I was like panicking a bit, and I think which just made it worse. But yeah, I got there.
And
Yeah.
I would like even to thank all the guys that watched this live, because I have to official to say that it is the most watched live during the live itself, because I have not so many views, but this one was the most viewed during the live. So I
Right.
want to thank anyone
Cool.
to join it, which joined and watched the content. Hopefully, we did a nice talk.
Legend there.
People enjoyed that, I suppose, but I hope someone will recover it, because this one stay on YouTube forever, so they can see us talk when they want. Okay, thank you very much. I'm stopping the live. You can stay here because I can tell you bye after I stopped the live. So thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.